Welcome to the Culinary Mechanic Podcast. Hey, we did it. We're at episode 20. By some measure, we're at like the top 50% of all podcasters. So welcome to the party. Today I'm super excited. I'm going to interview a guy named Luke Simonds. And I came across Luke about, I don't know, 9, 10 years ago in Napa Valley. We were at an almond board symposium. We got to cook with almonds for a couple days. And it was a media blitz, so there was all sorts of folks in there from the almond board and different media outlets and cameramen and the whole thing, and it was cool. It was fun. Fast forward to 2024, Luke works for Ignite Food Service Solutions. So, Ignite, and he is just this grounded dude who really is into food and into people, and it was a wonderful conversation. It was great to see somebody that really blended like art, science, and have a good life too. So here we go, man. This is going to be a great episode. I hope you enjoy it. Today I am joined by Luke Simonds. He is the corporate chef for Ignite Food Service. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Simon. This is going to be fun.
I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I feel like, man, I was thinking the other day, we met, just a couple years ago. No, that was 9 years ago. That was 2015. Yeah, so, good long ways away from the almond board and Napa.
Mm-hmm.
Glad we were able to reconnect.
Yeah, definitely.
So the Culinary Mechanic Podcast has sort of taken shape in that I don't mess around too much, and I like to say we're just going to press on the gas and go. So, First question is, how'd you get into this industry?
Well, I think, I don't know, my culinary origin story is probably mostly similar to a lot of other chefs in that, I came from a family that enjoyed food. My mother was a fantastic cook. But I never really saw it as a career, right? It was just like, we loved food. We wanted to make good food. Everybody appreciated good food. People were willing to put in the work to do it.
Awesome.
So, I don't know. I actually went to college the first time for civil engineering and jazz performance. I was a trumpet player and had no idea that, being a chef was going to be in my future. I was confused, man. I had no idea what to do, but all the while, I'd been working in restaurants and cooking for roommates and things like that. But I was on my second college stint and saw an ad for culinary school and basically it just kind of a light switch went on in my head. Like, wait a minute, like I could actually do this. Like I'm already doing it just at home, but why can't I do this as a real job? So I ended up getting a job at a country club and, kicking it with the chef there and all the cooks and prep cooks. I actually started out as a server just to kind of get my foot in the door. But I would stick around afterwards and help do prep, like off the clock, just to feel what it was like in the kitchen. Cause I was just kind of drawn to it, right. I don't even know how best to say it. Like, it was just like a comfort feeling, like I could work circles around people out in the front of the house and not knocking anybody in the front of the house because everybody in the front works hard too. But I never really felt totally comfortable there. So, but the kitchen was definitely comfortable. So, fast forward some years, I go to culinary school and I'm working at other restaurants and so forth. I find my way out into Boulder, Colorado, and my high school girlfriend, who we stayed on and off, girlfriend, boyfriend throughout all of that time, was going to school out here, and we were back together again. So that was a good draw for me to come to Colorado. Not that the mountains aren't enough, but yeah, we were talking about, all right, if I'm coming out here, what's the place I should go to? So I discovered this restaurant called the Flagstaff House. Flagstaff House is, hands down, best, food service experience restaurant that I've ever worked at.
Nice.
It's a phenomenal restaurant in Boulder. It's still around, run by the Manette family. Became really close with that family. You learn what you can in school, right? But chefs, we learn by doing, right? And we learn by actually getting our hands dirty and so forth. So yeah, I really kind of cut my teeth on it there and
Awesome.
learned real fast, learned a lot, and learned that yes, this is exactly what I need to be doing. Um, you know, I I did that for a while, kind of worked my way up. I mean, at one point, um, Mark's the was the head chef there in the Manette family. He would let me do prep, and I had to finish my prep list before the line cooks showed up, just to be able to go and hang out up on the hotline with the line cooks, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it took me a while to be able to get fast enough just to be able to do it. And then, once I got up there, it was like I could see it in these guys' eyes. They were, well, it was competitive, right? I mean,
Yep.
high end restaurants like that are super competitive. You become these are your best friends, but at the same time, you're elbowing each other to get the starting line cook job,
Yep.
and that kitchen was separated out into a number of different stations, each responsible for certain things. So very much the brigade system, um, and I was able to really climb my way up in that place. So, but yeah, I learned a lot. But eventually, it's time to move on. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we learn by doing, but we also learn by moving around and experiencing different chefs' takes on things and learning new systems and different restaurants. So I floated around a handful of different places, helped open up some restaurants in the Boulder, Colorado area, um, and helped open up a natural foods grocery store. And really developed recipes for all of that. I mean, they were reopening, so it was Alfalfa's natural foods grocery stores. They were a big thing back, I want to say like the late 70s, maybe early
Huh.
80s. But they were then purchased by another chains, Wild Oats, and then Wild Oats was purchased by Whole Foods, and so like the names are just kind of gone and lost. But the original owner of Alfalfa's, he had retained the right to reopen under the Alfalfa's name
Oh
if the
wow.
opportunity ever presented itself, and so it did. And yeah, he put together a team of a bunch of people. We tried to recreate some of the old recipes and update them and then create new recipes, but it was wild, man. Like we had 12 soup well, like hot soup well, so I had to have 12 soups going all the time. I had
Oh my God.
a pizza station, a hot sandwich station. Plus, then you've got your normal grocery store stuff like your cold salads, cold
Right.
sandwiches, prepackaged salads, prepackaged sandwiches. We had this whole like hot action station, but there's still all that other stuff. And so I felt very fortunate and lucky to be able to be a part of that kind of reopening team and get to really develop a lot of recipes. And I think that was another turning point for me in my
Nice.
career because I realized, I mean, back in the beginning, before I was a chef, that whole civil engineering and music thing, like I geek out about math
Uh-huh.
and also art at the same time. And so I kind of had this realization. It was like, as a chef, I get to do both. I get to play in both worlds all the time. This
Yeah.
very scientific,
Yeah.
mathematical world, but very creative and artistic world. And you're sort of the conduit for these two worlds coming together to create experiences for people that just want to touch it, and be near it from time to time, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like that was, man, that moment, like that was a huge moment. Like it was so cool. Like this is it. This is it again. Like lights are going off, right? Like you feel like, wow, like I don't need anything else the rest of my life. Like this is what feels like euphoric, like this is what brought all of that for me, right? And um yeah, it was super cool moment.
That's
Um
amazing.
yeah,
I
but
gotta say, you struck on something for me. I think that like I have become this person who thinks about like all the different kinds of chefs out in the world. You
mm-hmm,
know what I mean? Like it's just the private chef. It's the you talked about the country club, but I think the like I think it's really easy for somehow to like glaze over how much work goes into being the
Mm,
chef or a cook in a retail operation. Like
right.
I met a recent guy here in Seattle, like works for a company called the Metropolitan Market. There's like seven of them.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking to this guy and he's like, fuck, this is the hardest I've ever worked. He goes, and I've
Yeah.
been in some big kitchens. He goes, but
Right.
these people produce so much food, and then we're doing pizza at lunchtime, and we're doing this. He goes, and then you got to keep all those the as you said, like the grab and go salads, and he's like,
Hmm.
you got to keep them to a certain level. They don't
Oh
let you
yeah.
run out.
No, no, definitely
This
not.
is this is hard, and I was like, I never thought of that.
Yeah. Oh
So it's
yeah. Well,
interesting for you to say that, but I love it.
yeah.
I
And I
love
mean,
just sort of thinking of like the different kinds of chefs.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think, us as chefs, like I mean, you're so immersed in your role, in the moment, right? Like if you're a
Yep.
chef of a restaurant, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have some visibility to other restaurants around you and a little bit, but I mean, you're doing that 100% of the time, right? You're thinking about it, you're cooking, you are managing, you are, doing everything that it takes to keep that place going.
Right.
And so you're not really afforded the opportunity to really think, well, what is it like to be, a banquet chef instead of an individual restaurant chef, or a school chef? What's it like
Yeah.
to run and manage an entire complex, right? That has, maybe 5 or 6 different large kitchens, right? Like you were talking about the Sounders, and like, I mean, how many kitchens are there? Like there's got to be, you know, probably one main one, but then there's all these little satellite kitchens that also
Oh
have to
yeah.
be managed, right?
And
I mean,
I mean, just the stuffing alone makes my head hurt.
right, right.
You
Yeah,
know.
that, like I said, that alfalfa's was a big turning point for me again. But then when I was there, I met a guy that was he was previously a corporate chef for a national chain, or a company that owned a bunch of national chains. Or the name of that company was American Blue Ribbon Holdings, and they owned Village Inn, Baker Square,
Oh wow.
Max and Irma's, and then
VI.
ultimately, like, yeah, VI, yep, yeah. So that's actually, that was kind of my next step. But he went back to that world, and within a couple of weeks, he was like, "Hey, you did great developing recipes for the grocery store. What would you think about, joining this team over here? I have an opening." And I mean, in my mind, I'm like, hey, sounds good. Let's give it a shot. It's going to be Monday through Friday. Like, I'm not working on the weekends. My hours, they went back. No, I wouldn't say a ton, but they went back. Right. I mean,
Right.
I like to work. So, that lends itself well to being a chef too. Um, So there were times when I have to like pull myself away from work. Otherwise, I don't know, you get sort of addicted to
Totally.
it.
Guilty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've had to relearn as I have rounded out my 40s and rolling into my 50s. I have had to learn to um reprioritize life and
Uh-huh.
like go, okay, work's important. Focus on doing it the best you can and get
Right.
out.
Yep.
And get out.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I had recently, well, I mean, at that point, my first child was born. And so, it's a lot of, you know, the importance of family to me. I mean, it cannot be understated. Um, when I didn't have kids, sure, 80-hour weeks, whatever, I was, opening brunch for restaurants and then closing that night and then opening brunch the next day. And it was just, a pretty vicious cycle. But
Yeah.
when you've got, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, life forces itself upon you, and you really just don't have a say. It's a lot about, how you react to that change in your life. And for me, it was a little rocky at first. I was not the best dad at first, but you
Yeah.
know, I recognized what was going on, and then I was provided an opportunity that just really fell in my lap where I could,
Nice.
keep doing basically what I'm doing and continue on as a chef. I will say I was I mean, the thought of going and being the corporate chef for Village Inn at first, it was like, really? Is that what I want to do? Like it was not, it was not the world that I had been in, you know, and
Right.
then it felt so different and alien and like, you know, and not, I didn't ever think like, oh, the food, I'm better than this. Like I never really saw it like that. Though I will say a lot of my friends were like, what do you think you're doing? Like, why would you do that? Well, you're gonna go make pancakes and scrambled eggs. And you know, we've been, you know, doing all this other fancy stuff. Like, why would you do that? Right. But there was a piece of me that, you know, I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from a small town. Um, you know, I have, you know, blue collar, you know, I am blue collar, I should say. I want to say I have blue collar roots, but I am, there are no collar roots. I don't even know what you want to call it. You know, my father is still a carpenter. My
Nice.
mother was a counselor at a prison. So I, you know, I feel like among the two of them, I grew a passion for basically using my hands,
Right.
but then also team building and teaching people how to do things. And you know, again, like not unlike when I was at Alfalfa's, after the first, you know, year or so with Village Inn, I you know, I had another realization that like, you know, this job with Village Inn, I was afforded the time to think, you know, like I didn't have service to deal with ever, right? I was constantly thinking and developing and trying to come up with the best way to execute the same dishes or new dishes, you know, or anything like that, or the best way to then like teach somebody how to do it. So I
Yeah.
would get, you know, shipped out into the field, and it wasn't because I needed to go work the line. It was because I needed to stand there and be relatable to the line cooks that I was teaching how to make these new menu items.
Right.
And, you know, the teaching aspect of what, you know, what I was doing then like really struck with me also. Like, man, I mean, you do the best as a chef, right? You do the best you can to teach people and, you know, teach them how to be good line cooks, good dishwashers, you know, good whatevers, but good human beings, right? You know, and I think if you make good human beings, if you make good human beings, if I can speak right, if you make good human beings, teach them to be good human beings, everything else just kind of falls in place, right?
For sure.
Teach them to care about themselves, teach them to care about each other, teach them that, you know, being in the kitchen's about being a family
Right.
and protecting each other at all costs.
Yeah. I mean, I I I think the impact of that like corporate chef role for me is staggering. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, someone
Yeah.
says, "Oh, you're doing pancakes." Yeah, but you know how bloody hard it is to make sure that
Oh yeah.
whatever it is, 100 to 500 restaurants are all
Mm-hmm.
executing something the same. Like that's
Yeah.
staggering, man.
Something that's, and like they made, you know, buttermilk pancakes from scratch. They would make it every day. They'd make, well, depending on the restaurant, I mean, they were making, I don't know, anywhere from 20 to like 50 gallons of pancake batter a day.
That's disgusting, but
I
that's
know.
amazing
Right?
all the same time.
Yeah. Right. But
That's
I
a
mean,
lot of freaking pancakes.
everything's, you know, everything would get measured. Nothing came in like, you know, pre-portioned or anything like that. They didn't have a mix. It was all, you know, from scratch. So I was always impressed by that. Yeah. Yeah. It was
That's awesome.
in the beginning. Oh man. So yeah, I had my apprehension about taking that job and part of it also was, um, in my career, my early career, I had actually worked for a small chain. It was one of my first like sous chef positions, and didn't have hardly any interaction with like the corporate folks. But every once in a while, the corporate chef, and then there was a corporate sous chef also, they would either pop in or we would, you know, we would have an interaction. Let's just put it that
Right.
way. And typically they sucked. It was not a good interaction. And I grew to hate it actually. And there was a point at that point in my career, I was like, you know, I'm never, ever going to work in a corporate environment ever again. Right.
Right.
And, but you mentioned something about the impact. Right. And so
Yeah.
I know, you know, once I got a little more comfortable at Village Inn and everything, I started to have that realization too. Like here, I don't have to be those guys, right? I don't have to be a complete dick. I don't have to, just kind of impose my will on people because I feel like that's what I want to do. I don't have to have any arrogance about it. I can truly be, this leader that I wished I had had when I was in that position.
Absolutely.
Right. And that was what I was striving to be. I still strive to be that now.
I love it. I mean, you hit some of my favorite words, man, like team building and teaching, but I think the leadership aspect just is so massive to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just like understanding how your actions and like how you approach something can affect somebody else or 1,000 somebody else's. You
Right.
know, like it's interesting because when I think back to myself as a teenager getting into cooking and then going forward, and like when you and I met, I had just taken over as a multi-unit chef, and I had 3 units, and I eventually grew to 7 where I was
Uh-huh.
overseeing. And so it's not exactly Village Inn, but at the same time, it's like I deal with these guys on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and getting to understand that like how to be able to affect and interact with those people
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot, right? It requires a lot of thinking and a lot of compassion and empathy, but also like you got to be kind of cunning to figure out kind of what motivates people.
Totally. Yeah.
So I think about all those leadership qualities and all those things that have to come together to be able to do it, that I never thought in a million years I was going to. And you even said, oh, I never want to be a part of a corporate entity or a
Mm-hmm.
corporate thing. But here you are going, wait, I don't have to be that guy. I can
Right.
be something different. I think that's pretty cool, man. Honestly,
Yeah.
like being able to, I like to say, if you want to figure out how you want to lead, think about the leaders that you loved. I also say,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to think about how you want to lead, think about the things you hated about leaders.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and don't get
Things
caught
to
up in those
avoid.
traps.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
think back to like even like some of my, my favorite teachers in like middle school. Like I think about Mr. Bandy. Like he had an impact on me back then. And just treating me like I wouldn't say an equal. He was still my teacher, but he treated me more like, a brother or family or somewhat of an equal, right? And
right.
I think, that's what we should do. That's what we should all do. That him and my jazz instructor in high school, like people well outside of the food world that had an impact on how I think about managing people and
Right.
managing process. I mean, all of that. It's not, you're managing everything around you at all times. But
The restaurant business can be a grueling day-to-day endeavor. And with costs rising all the time, profit on the bottom line, it's getting scarce. It's getting hard to do. Culinary Mechanic is here for you, though. From systems, tools, and structure to coaching on leadership, delegation, and time management, or perhaps even just being an accountability partner to help you drive those results, drive a little more money to the bottom line. We can help you. You can find us at www.culinarymechanic.com. Don't worry, we got you.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So all of those things, I mean, I like to say every day of our career sets us up for the present day, right? So
Hmm.
uh how does all of that, how does all of that impact your work with Ignite, and kind of
Sure.
tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's pretty cool. Like when I first heard about your position, I was like, man, that sounds like fun.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean,
give us a story.
there's a bunch of, so Ignite Food Service Solutions, the company that I work for now, we are an equipment manufacturer's rep firm. And so we
Okay.
represent manufacturers of commercial equipment, really anything, as you can see kind of behind me here, equipment that you would have in a restaurant, in a hotel, in a school, or whatever, any kind of, commercial type setting. Um, I had some exposure to these types of, businesses, I would say, when I was
Right.
with Village Inn, and then after Village Inn, I was with Red Robin for about 7 years too, doing basically the same thing. Um, because you're constantly purchasing equipment. When you have that many restaurants, when you're at the hundreds, you have a person that just basically manages buying equipment all the time.
Right.
And so they're always looking for, all right, what's next? What's going to make, things easier? What's going to make things more efficient? What type of equipment is going to fit in the space that I have? And I can't say that I was overly involved with those processes at Red Robin or at Village Inn. But I was always a part of the conversation. And
Right.
so I had this vision to it. Um, and you know, realistically, I met a guy that was working for Ignite. And we just kind of stayed friends. I mean, you hold on to your contacts, right? And we stayed friends, you know, for as long as you and I've known each other.
Nice.
And uh, you know, so it happened that they had a need, and I was exiting Red Robin at the time, and it sounded like well, here's a whole other chapter that I have no idea how to write, and we should try this out. This sounds like it could be pretty interesting because just on the surface, when I was looking at it, it was like, oh, I'm going to get to do demos. So I'll get to, cook food. I'll get to create and come up with some new items and just pretty much play around with equipment, make stuff, which
Right.
sounds like, no, that's not even that hard of work. And then, there's a teaching aspect, which I always also kind of have grown into and really enjoy. And so when I do the demos, I'm teaching people. When we have people we invite in here, if they want to, try it before they buy it type of situation with the equipment, with any of the equipment that I have here in my kitchen, all of it's functional, all of it is ready for somebody to walk in and use. And so, having the exposure to the need for a bunch of different equipment when I was at Red Robin and Village Inn and really all restaurants before, um, you know, it, it set me up to be successful in this role, in that I have such a wide variety of kind of baseline for equipment, right? Like all the different things that are out there. I mean, I've been in so many different places now that I've seen so many different types of equipment and used and worked with so many different types of equipment. So I can
Right.
compare, with, the lines that we represent now. I can very easily and quickly go to, this competitor and that competitor and think like, all right, well, this is what was good about this, and this is what's better about this one. But, ours can do this and so forth. And so just being able to balance out, the capabilities of things. And, when I can get in a room with another chef that's looking for a piece of equipment, and we can talk, our own language about, what do we need the equipment to do. We can talk about the actual menu. We can talk
Right.
about the aspirations of the chef. Like, yeah, this is the menu now, but what do you want the menu to be? What do you want it to be in a year? What do you want it to be tomorrow? Like, how fast, and what space do you want to be in? Like, what do we want to grow into? Because, get the equipment, the right equipment for what, your aspirations need to be.
Right.
I think is a much better way to think, because a lot of times people get something because they have to. I'm replacing this oven with this exact same oven because it's going to do exactly what I've been doing for the last 10 years, and it'll do the exact same jobs. Yeah, sure, that's great. If you want to just keep doing that, that's awesome. And but you don't have to. Let's get something that can do that and do something else. Why
Yeah.
not? Right?
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
it amazes me just like where technology has gone with some of this kitchen equipment now. I mean,
Uh,
I yeah, I'm blown out of the water, man. Like
well, I was gonna say toys.
yeah, oh my gosh, there are some toys. Oh geez.
you
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I had limited combi oven cooking experience. I mean,
Oh,
outside of just like really big banquets or really big events, right? And being able to do massive amounts of product at once. That was really the only experience that I'd ever had. And now I'm using these for so many different things. I mean, the combi oven that I have here, it's traditional combi oven, but it's highly programmable. I can do a lot of different things with it. I can I can't turn it on from my phone, but I can manage the processes. I can manage the programs that are in it from my phone. And this is a commercial, restaurant piece of equipment. This is not like a home piece of equipment, right?
Right.
Like I would expect that with home stuff, but this is something that goes in a hotel or a school or, any restaurant for that matter. And I can do all that with it. And
I love it.
it's also a smoker if I want it to be a smoker. Um, I can turn it into like an overnight cooking, like hot, like a cook and hold style oven where,
Yep.
it goes from one temperature to another temperature to then to drop down into a holding temperature so that, like if you were talking about, I don't know if any of us have ever worked in a place where somebody didn't call in sick on a regular basis. And, you have this item that you started yesterday that's already done when you walk in the door. You've got a
Yep.
menu item already finished before you even get there. So, if that one person calls out, then that's one less thing you got to worry about. Um,
Absolutely. I find it staggering. Like the whole idea of the cook and hold and remote, kind of
uh-huh.
just remote monitoring and all that stuff. But I also love like some of the use of the sensors with the combis, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you can just set the sensor in, and I had a combi in the kitchen I was in, and then I went and did a like a guest chef thing at a local nonprofit where they do, they help folks kind of get off the streets or come out of jail, and they teach them how
Nice.
to cook. And like these
That's
guys were
pretty awesome.
teaching me like how to use their super fancy corporate sponsored combi with the sensors, and like we were cooking, whole chickens, and
Right.
the guy's like, "Well, we'll put the sensor in the big one."
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, look
Just
at you
pro
go!"
right there.
It was amazing, but
Uh-huh.
just to see like so much of that stuff evolve,
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
It's
Not
pretty
gonna lie
wild. Yeah.
though, I'm still an open fire guy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
let,
Same
let
here.
me let me have some bricks and some wrought iron, and I am good.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah, it's
the
hard to get
toys are
that
good.
out of your system. I'm the same way. Like I am fascinated and I enjoy the technology. But if it gets right down to it, I mean, I'm still most comfortable with some burners, maybe that pizza oven that's back there,
Yeah.
and just working way and taming the flame as somebody may say, with whatever it is I'm trying to cook.
Well, and for the folks that are not going to see this on YouTube, but are going to see it or going to hear it, he's
Hmm.
got a really cool wood stone
Mm,
uh, oven
yeah,
behind him that is pretty awesome.
right.
Uh, so let's just jump into the fun one here.
Mhm.
What advice have you got for what I like to call fresh culinarians? I don't necessarily
Mm.
call them younger culinarians or young chefs, but the folks who are fresher to the industry who may not have had all the years. You got any pearls of wisdom for us?
Oh man. I mean, I think like anything, I mean, work hard. I mean, you cannot discount, what effort is going to provide you in the end. It doesn't matter, where you've gone to school, it doesn't matter, where you've come from. Nothing is going to be given to you in the kitchen. You are going to have to earn it. So don't discount how some hard work and dedication really will get you a long ways. But that being said, also don't take yourself all that serious either. I think a lot of people get it in their head, they have, their whole life planned out already. They know exactly where they want to end up, or they know exactly where they think they should end up or where they should be. But, life has a funny way of correcting us and putting us in a space where we're supposed to be. And you really need to allow those things to happen. When you make mistakes, do it, make it a big mistake and learn from it.
Yep.
And, don't shy away from it, right? Don't let that be something that causes you to, second guess yourself or whatever. Just continue going, continue to work hard, and, you will reap dividends in the future.
I love
Good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of failing forward.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just if you're gonna make mistakes, yeah, make them big.
Yeah.
Because you just can't learn from it otherwise.
Hmm.
Man, Luke, what a great conversation. I can't thank you
Yeah.
enough for coming to play with us in my little sandbox of the world here.
It's
Um,
my pleasure, man. This was super cool. Like you said in
I'm
the beginning, it's nice to reconnect. Um,
absolutely. It's also just great to hear that like there's other thing like it's great for people to understand that there's just other ways to go about it, right? Like
mhm,
I think the corporate chef thing, whether it be for a village inn or an equipment firm, I think that a rep firm, it's cool.
mhm.
I think that it's great because some of us grounded out in the trenches for 30 plus, and I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had seen some of those jobs along the way, but
Right,
whatever. I'm supremely happy with the way that my world has evolved. So,
right.
um, for all of you out there, please continue to listen to the Culinary Mechanic podcast because we're getting just a few more listeners every week, and I genuinely appreciate it. So, look forward to catching up with you in the future, Luke, and thanks again for coming.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.